Hello, my name is Jim. This is my podcast, The Bloody Vegans. You're very welcome to it. Each week I'll be travelling ever deeper into the world of veganism, discovering along the way a multitude of viewpoints from the political and ethical to the practical. I'll be doing this through a series of conversations, each aiming to further illuminate my understanding and hopefully yours of all things plant-centric. And this week's no different. I'm going to be chatting with Charmaine Soldiew, the owner and founder of a cruelty-free and vegan hair salon in Manchester, up in the north of England. Charmaine had an incredible idea through her kind of vegan journey that she would actually take the plunge, I guess, make a brave decision that potentially could have alienated some of her customers and make her hair salon vegan, and it's done quite the opposite. She's gone from strength to strength with it. So without further ado, here's a conversation between me and Charmaine Soldiew.
And I think it was by PETA at the time, and I seen pigs being slaughtered. I'd had like little occasions like that early on, and I said to her mum, I was like, that's it, I'm never eating pork again. So from then I didn't eat it for a bit, and then mum made me something, completely forgot about it. So that was my little half-arsed attempt at it at the time. And then I remember going to a concert in McFly, I think it was at the time, and there was a girl walking around and she was so lovely. And she was saying, don't eat from KFC, look at what they're doing to these birds, you know, they're cutting the beaks off with a hot knife. And I was telling everybody, don't go to KFC, but still at that point, it didn't register in my mind that don't eat chicken from anywhere. I was just like, no, I just won't eat from KFC because it's really bad. So I feel like it took me quite a long time to sort of connect the animals to that point. But the real sort of turning point for me was I'd gone to a working farm with my husband, and there was a cow there, and it was literally the most gorgeous cow that you'll ever see in your whole entire life. And it kept sticking its face out and wanted me to stroke it. So I kept stroking its face, and it just like looked at me so lovingly. And I just felt like so much love for this cow. And everyone after that was like going over to it and stroking it. And I just couldn't sort of get my head around the fact that this animal was like me. I was like, it wants to be loved. I don't know, there's something about it. It was like a light bulb moment at that point. And I went to a husband, I said, that's it, I am never ever eating beef again. And from that point, I started gradually cutting things out. And I think I was only really eating chicken at that point because I was always kind of put off pork. I've never been like a massive meat eater or anything like that. But once I made that connection, which sounds mental that I wouldn't make that connection, but once I made that connection with that cow and I just constantly started thinking about it, it was quite easy to cut things out from that point. So from there, I went pescatarian. So I cut chicken out, and I just watched PETA videos about it. So I cut that out, and then decided that I was just going to eat dairy and fish. And I did that for about 2 years, and I was always going to cut fish out, but it just took me a lot longer. I would probably say out of everything, that was the hardest thing for me to cut out because I couldn't really connect with it the same as I could with other animals. And then when I did decide to make that decision, I cut fish out, and then quite quickly on after that, I cut dairy out as well. And that's just literally because I'm lactose intolerant. But I would have continued eating it, I think, at that point. But I had to then look at videos to stop myself. And I never ever realised how bad the dairy industry was. I was absolutely disgusted. And because I made that connection with the cow that day, I thought, oh my God, like I can't do this. Because like, think about that cow. So I always just think about that cow, like when it was just so easy for everything to be cut out then at that point. Because I just think about that cow that I see and everyone else. So I just remember feeling so annoyed at that day when I seen everyone go over to stroke it, and I was like, everyone's such a hypocrite here. myself included at the time, because we would have gone to McDonald's and had a burger at that point on a Sunday generally, or like some form of junk food like that. And I was like, everyone's going over this cow and like saying how amazing it is and how gorgeous and how loving it is and like stroking it. But they're all probably going to go home and have a Sunday dinner and, have beef. And I was like, wake up. And I was like, how have I not thought this all this time? So yeah, so that was my journey into veganism. So it took a while. So I think I was pescatarian for 2 years, and then I've been vegan for 2 years now. But yeah, I would say I found fish and dairy the hardest to cut out. But I think once I associated animals with it, it was a lot easier for me. But I think it's making that for connection for a lot of people. I remember going around to my mother-in-law's house, and she's got lambs at the back of the house. They were like, oh, we went to take Heidi, which is my niece. We took her to the field over there. Oh my God, you should see these lambs. Oh my God, they were so gorgeous, so beautiful. And then the next thing, she was like, do you want a lamb? And they were passing lamb around this table. And I think, how can you just say that lamb's so gorgeous? But I think that's just probably what the majority of people were like before they made that connection with animals. But to me, like, once you make that connection, you're like, you are crazy. Like, how can you just say that? And then you're literally passing lamb around the table. It's just mental.
Yeah,
So
once it's sort of once you do make that connection, like I always think of things like Easter, but
that
like
was it, Easter. That's what it
yeah,
was.
an event like Easter is just is crazy. Sort of, you're celebrating the life of whether it be lambs or you're talking about baby chicks and all the rest of it, and doing that or celebrating that through the means of eating a particular body part. It's a very strange concept, and yeah, more power to you for making that connection. I'm intrigued as to whether your other half went along with you. When you sort of made this connection at this working farm, and I imagine I'm thinking of the car journey on the way home, where you've pieced all this together, and you're looking at everybody else there. Is he with you on that, or is he sort of? Was that conversation not quite so free flowing? Did he take a bit of convincing? Where was he at on the journey?
Well, Chris has been brought up with his granddad owned a farm at the time. So after me like saying about this cow, I was like, oh my God, did you not feel that with the cow? And do you not think it's really bad that we're eating it? I was like, how can you eat it now after seeing that? I was like, how nice was that cow? Like, how loving was it? I was like, I can't think about that now. I can't eat beef thinking about that animal. And I was like, Chris, did you? And he was like, no, I'm going to still eat burgers. And it took him longer to sort of make that connection, but he went vegetarian and he eats predominantly vegan with me at home. But I think for him it's more cheese, which everybody says, don't they, like cheese is like the hardest. And I think for him as well, it's he feels like he's limited to what he can eat.
Okay. So for you guys, like, was this a bit of a, you've started to have these kind of make these kind of connections? Was there, and you mentioned that Peter made a big impression on you from the kind of video perspective and so on. Was there another angle from, I guess, the learning about it? We talked a little bit earlier about the kind of nutritional bit as we think about bringing up our children and so on. But was that a consideration from you? Did you start having concerns about, well, what will I eat? What will I be deficient in? And not just from a nutritional standpoint, but was there an element of, I literally don't know what to eat, or did you have it quite figured out quite early?
I'll be honest, like the first year I went vegan, I really, really struggled. I felt quite angry. I was like, there's literally no food for me to eat. And, I'd go out and I felt like there was no sort of options or any, whereas before when I was eating fish and I was having dairy, I found it a million times easier. But I do think like now, oh my God, it's so easy. I can literally just go out, like Pizza Hut started doing vegan pizza. So it's like completely different. But I would say that I've really got the hang of it now. But at the time, I was just constantly watching things like What the Health, Earthlings. I just remember like thinking like, how awful are we? Like these animals are just so loving, and just so gentle, and this is what we do to them. I was just like disgusted, and I remember showing my dad this video of What the Health, and he just cut meat out overnight. So mum and dad are actually vegan now. Yeah, like my dad's 50. Well, he's 53 this year, but he cut out meat, yeah, when he was 50.
Wow. And so did you say they're both vegan now, your parents?
Yeah, but oh my God, my dad used to eat loads of meat. And when I remember I'd cut out meat, he was like poo-pooing it a little bit. He went, "Oh, you're not going to be one of these, are you?" Whereas my dad, he's like one of these angry vegans.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's always got an opinion on it. So it's quite funny to see the change.
So he's so he's become quite sort of quite militant, a bit of an activist, sort of quite late on then, once he'd made these connections.
Yeah, yeah. So my dad was, it just always goes on like saying it's not good for you, and ingesting other like animals that are dead, and you're just eating death, and we would just say things like that. My mum was always lactose intolerant, so she never had dairy anyway, but my mum just kind of went along with my dad. But yeah, he just started to get more and more into it. But I think when he's at work, he'll say like the odd comment like, "Oh, you can, it doesn't matter if you don't eat meat," and things like that. I'm sure he said it a lot different from the way I've just said it. I think I've said it a bit politer, but I think for men, and I don't know how you felt about this, but I think Chris was majorly worried about what his friends and family would think, because we started cutting dairy out at home. So I went through a spell of like cutting dairy out, but I'd still have things like chocolate when I was pescatarian. And his mum and dad were like, "Are you all right? We've noticed you've lost weight. You're getting really slim. It's not good for you to not have milk." And I think he sort of didn't do it for that reason as well, because he was just worried about what people would think. And I think there comes this stigma with being vegan that it means you're not as masculine, like not eating meat, which is absolutely ridiculous, because I think it's actually stronger to actually go against the grain and think, actually, you know what, I don't want to eat animals, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely think that exists. Yeah, absolutely. Particularly like, in your typical kind of typical male pursuits, if you like, or the things that are associated with sort of whatever the Western ideal of masculinity is. But like things like sport, I'm thinking, I'm really into football and rugby and ice hockey and all these kind of sports, and they can be quite sort of overtly stereotypically masculine environments where yeah, you definitely take a fair bit of stick from people. But with the same token, I think the sort of the even that I think is shifting. I think as you see like Lewis Hamilton and Novak Djokovic and people like this sort of switching to veganism. The Williams sisters have had periods of time, and so on and so forth. So there's lots of, I think, as sort of sports people become vegan, I think I'm pleased to say I think that's disappearing slowly. It's like Lionel Messi and Chris Smalling, and there's all kinds of there's lots of footballers and stuff now. So I think it's getting there, but I'm with him. I think it definitely still exists, and I definitely had that experience with my parents. But I'm not sure that that's necessarily a gender one. I think just parents worry, don't they? So if you're doing anything a bit that's considered a bit different, then
against the grain.
Yeah, they want to question it. My parents still do now to some extent, but much less than at the beginning.
But I totally agree with you. Like these athletes that are coming out, I've known so many people. I can't think of the film that's come out at the moment, but that's it. I've heard like so many people that come into the salon, and I was like, "Oh, watch Game Changers," and it's like they see these like elite athletes that look incredible, and they're like, "I want to be that person," I want to look like them. So I think, like you say, it definitely has changed in that respect. I don't know if with Chris as well, he's so easygoing, and I think he was just a little bit embarrassed about saying to people at work, actually, when they go out for McDonald's, "I'm going to have a chicken burger, what do you want?" He'd be like, he'd sort of want to go along with it. So I think he probably would have done it a little bit sooner, but that was probably one of the reasons why I didn't. That's it, yeah, because I feel like there's a lot. You feel like you just. It sounds awful because it's, we're doing it for the animals and things like that, but you feel like you're being really awkward when you go into people's houses, like, oh, sorry, I don't eat meat. Like, why should you be apologetic for it? You don't want to eat animals, but there is like, oh, don't go out your way for me, I'll bring my own food. And I mean, I don't know how you deal with that. I mean, it's quite easy for me now because mum and dad are both vegan, so if we go around there, we know we're going to get catered for, so.
Yeah, not much the same. I'm probably still in the um, trying to not be, the stereotypical vegan, if you like, and cause a fuss. So,
That's
so,
it, yeah.
so I try. I'm still probably in the camp of like, bring your own food. Don't be awkward, kind of thing. But with the same token, there is a little militance inside me that wants me to sort of, say, well, why is it the default choice that we all eat meat, sort of thing. So it's a really challenging one, isn't it?
People really panic about what to make you as well, but like, oh, I don't know what to do. But I suppose it is probably a bit more of a faff for somebody. But if you're going to make things from scratch, I mean, so if you wanted to like get butter and things, you'd obviously have to get things that haven't got dairy in. But yeah, I know like Chrissy's mum really panics about when we come round. She's like, I have no idea what to give them. But there's so many things now, like vegan pizzas. That's such an easy one, isn't it? Just chips and chips. That's like the
Just
vegan
chips.
staple, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you can always make the like more restaurants than I suppose visiting people's houses, but the sort of sides tapas, I'd call it, where you end up with like a bowl of chips and whatever vegetable you can get on the sides menu, and I always think I can cobble together something off the back of that. But even when I don't know about you, but when I do that in a restaurant with friends, there's always an element of, I don't know, even that I feel like I'm being awkward because it's
I
like,
know what you
well,
mean. I
you're
do
not
know what you mean.
you're not enjoying a main and we're all enjoying mains, and you're kind of, oh, we've got to feel a bit apologetic because you're eating sides.
Yeah. Do you feel a bit embarrassed sometimes when you go out? Because I do. And you're like, is it vegan? You feel like you're being a bit of an idiot, but you're like, well, what else am I supposed to say? Like, I need to know whether it is or it isn't because I don't want to consume animal products. But you feel
Yeah.
like you're being a little bit out there, like
Yeah,
you don't want to cause the fuss.
I think I've got more comfortable over the course of time, but there's definitely in the beginning I was probably overly apologetic. But I think with more and more experience, I've probably realised that particularly like restaurant staff, like they hear everything. Like they've heard so much that they're not, doesn't phase them. They're so used to the conversations, whether it's somebody saying, I can't eat eggs, or I don't eat that particular type of, I don't know, fine bean or something. That's probably not an intolerance, but you get my drift. That there's probably lots of very select things that they've heard that I'm less worried about them now. But at the beginning, yeah, I was definitely overly apologetic. Um, more so like now, just that it's more at people's houses than I sort of liked, because that there's this sort of social awkwardness that's created by by you turning up and them not having anything to give you, sort of thing. So
Yeah, and then especially if you're drinking as well, it's like horrendous.
well, thankfully I don't drink because I always think if it must be a minefield drinking because there's so much animal product in various alcoholic drinks. I don't know how you find that. Do you find that quite a challenge?
I'm not a massive drinker myself, like you. Well, yeah, no, you don't drink, but I don't drink an awful lot. But I just tend to just stick to like spirit, like Disaronno and Coke. That's all I'd have really. I wouldn't really have anything else. I'm not a massive wine drinker, whereas I think that's when it gets into a bit of a minefield at that point. Then with wine.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, wines and beers and stuff. There's all sorts of stuff that goes on that you'd like. To be honest, before I became vegan, I had no idea about. But you learn as you go, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of my clients that came in to the salon, she was saying that she still has prosecco now, and she was like, "Oh my god, I didn't realise that it goes through fish bladders." And someone was saying that it has egg or something in it. I was like, "What?" She said her husband's allergic to eggs, and they have that in it.
I'm I'm intrigued as to I'd love to get onto the salon. So, because I just the conversations that I can imagine would go on at a salon, like you talk about everything in salons, like, and just as you mentioned there, I'm intrigued about your particular experience with this type of conversation because um, I've had that one myself, and it can always be a bit awkward where you point out something to somebody who's would like identify themselves as vegan, and you don't want to be awkward, but you kind of almost feel like, well, I definitely need to tell them that that thing isn't vegan that they've just said that they're really into. Have you had any kind of experiences with that, with either products or food, where you've kind of said to somebody, they've said, "Oh yeah, I really love using X," and you've gone, "Oh, that's not actually vegan."
I think there's ways around it. I mean, this particular girl that I'm talking about has managed to point things out to me. Like we both helped each other out, but I think she mentioned it, and I was like, "Oh my god, did you not know that it's not vegan?" I was like, "I've only just found out," and she was like, "No way!" But we've got that relationship with one another. I mean, she was saying, "Oh, what did you get from the Indian last night?" And I said, "Oh, I got naan bread." She went, "You do know that's got milk in it, don't you?" And I was like, "What? No, I didn't." So I think there's always something that you can learn from one another, but it's probably just the way you say it as well, I suppose, isn't it? Like I've got a really good relationship with all of my clients, so there's none of that. I mean, I do feel like I have to be careful what I say to clients that aren't vegan. That's always a bit of an awkward one sometimes, like what to say, and I don't want to come across like I'm being too pushy or
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, I want to definitely pick up on that point, but I would just like to like get like almost go back in the chronology. Like, when did the salon start and the crossover with your veganism happen as well? Because I'm kind of intrigued as to that. Was did the salon exist before the veganism, or vice versa?
So the salon did exist before the veganism. So the salon originally was set up as a cruelty-free salon. And the reason why that happened was I remember having a client in that I was talking to, and I was just chatting to her about being pescatarian. I was like, I'm pescatarian. I don't eat meat, and I thought it was like amazing at the time, like telling this client about it. And she was like, "Yeah," she said, "I only eat chicken." She said, "But what I always do make sure is that none of my products are tested on animals." And I was like, "Come again?" And she was like, "Yeah, things get tested on animals. And I was like, "What? Really?" And then she went and told me about these dogs her friend had took from a laboratory, and basically they had to sign a disclaimer that they would take them out and they wouldn't kill these dogs in a laboratory, so they could have like a good life. And she was saying that when they let them out, that they'd never seen grass and things like that before, and it had just majorly stuck with me. And at the time, I had bought into a brand that wasn't cruelty free. And it was quite short after that I got my own salon, and I just said to myself, right, that's it. I'm going to make sure it's cruelty free, because I've still got a dog. I've got a little miniature schnauzer, and I just thought I couldn't even bear the thought of anything being tested on you. And I was amazed like how many different animals that are actually tested on. So I was like, right, when I have a salon, I'm going to make sure it's cruelty free. So I opened the salon. I had a little bit, it was quite hard at the start to find some really good brands that were cruelty free, because normally as a hairdresser you can go to your likes of Alan Howard or Sally's and things like that, and you'd go and there would be no cruelty free brands at all there. So it was like you had to sort of source them and order them in. So I had to like try and find brands that I wanted to work with that were really good, and it was a little bit of trial and error at the time as well, and that's just a minefield in itself, cruelty free. I was with a brand at the time that was saying that they were cruelty free, and it turned out that they were shipping to China, and China's laws are, once they hit China, if they're not from China, they have to be tested on animals when they get to that point to make sure that they're safe to use over in China. So I was like, I've just bought into these products that they're saying that they're cruelty free, but they could be potentially being tested on animals. So I had to pull them out and then start looking for another brand. So it's been a bit tricky, to be fair. And then from then on, I decided that I was going to be I made the transition into being vegan at that point, and I was getting quite a lot of clients messaging me and saying about, oh wow, I'm so glad that I found you. You know, I've been wanting to go to a vegan hairdresser for a bit, and I was like, I'm really sorry, but the products that I use have actually got honey in, which means that they're not vegan. Um, and then it was just trying to find a vegan brand at that point. And then I found a really good brand, and then I've stuck with them since then. But it's been a lot of trial and error through all of the products. So yeah, that's been a major minefield. But it feels really good to be doing as much as I possibly can for all the animals, and I try and be as sustainable as possible, like buying not reusable towels, bamboo towels, so like the single use towels, and they biodegrade. So I do like them a little bit like that.
So I bet you, because that's really interesting to me, that point of like, because of your line of work, you've had to become an expert in kind of, I guess, all things cosmetic and hair products and so on and so forth. Because I don't know, certainly my experience in a lot of the vegans I spoke to, like number one is the food, and that feels quite easy, and then sort of the clothing aspects start to then follow. And an area that I find people, I don't want to say trip up because it sounds a little sort of judgy and completist, but still I'll use it just because I can't think of a better word. The area that most people trip up, and certainly an area I still find a challenge, is, you know, walking into your local or your multi-site pharmacist on the high street, naming no names, but you walk into one of those kind of stores and you want to buy, I don't know, toothpaste or razors or, you know, shaving foam or you name it, hair products, blah blah blah, and it's an absolute minefield. I mean, they're getting better, I guess, at labeling these things, but would it be fair to say you almost had to go about it the other way round from your veganism point of view? Like, you understood that, probably that element, before the food? Would that be fair to say?
Um, Probably, yeah, because I think after a year, it's only when I really got to grips with veganism, to be fair. But it was just through trial and error, and I think making mistakes, you know, within the business, like getting all those products in that I'd spent thousands of pounds on, and then having a responsibility and thinking, do I either keep these products in when they're saying they're cruelty free and just don't tell anybody because that's what they're marketed as, or do I just lose money and be true to myself and not give this company any money? And that's what I kind of decided to do. But it was quite tricky. But I mean, this is a really easy tip for you. Like, so when you're going out and looking for cruelty-free products, anything that's made in Europe isn't tested on animals. So anything that's made in China hasn't been tested on animals. But anything that is shipped over to China, so if you see a product that you like that's made in the UK, for example, but it's shipped over to China and it's retailed there, so you'd be able to tell if you went online and you'd see where this applies to, that would be tested on animals, because by law that's how they have to do it. So that doesn't make sense to me, because you think, well, why don't they test on animals in China, but they want to do it the other way around? So yeah, but I think they're supposed to be changing the laws and stuff, so I think it's just constantly changing. But I don't know if it's because I'm a lot more aware about what I'm buying now, but I found it a lot easier, and I see loads of little things popping up and cruelty-free hair salons and people marketing themselves as that. So I think it is getting a little bit easier.
Yeah, that's a really great top tip, actually. Thanks for that. So when you kind of sort of went on that journey, was that something that kind of like, I guess, sort of, if you like, went into your personal kind of life as well? Did you very quickly sort of then have to reassess kind of every product that you were buying in the home? Did it kind of extend beyond there?
Yeah, I mean, I had to like look at different companies for like washing powder and things like that. So I go with a company called Worth. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're really good. Because I think being vegan as well makes you sort of look at other aspects of it, and especially like in my industry, because you think about all the stuff I use, like the tubes of tin, the cardboard that things come in, and plastic, so there's always something to consider with things like that as well, like just trying to make as little impact as I possibly can. But generally they're both sort of linked together. So when you're buying products that are good for the environment, they're generally vegan. So, I mean, everything in the salon I had to sort of look at cleaning products as well. But I mean, I'm not one of these people that's got the patience to make my own cleaning products, to be honest. I know you can do, but yeah, definitely not for me.
No, not for me either. Like, I'd love to get to that point from a no waste point of view, but no, I'll definitely obviously look for the vegan products, but I haven't quite got to the stage of manufacturing my own yet, but maybe one day.
It's really hard as well because I think things are always labelled vegetarian, but they don't say vegan. Which I think if it just said vegan, it would cover it would cover vegetarians as well.
Yeah, I think that's true. That's true across the board, isn't it? I always think that with like, I don't know about you with your little one, but I find this at, I don't know if little Wolf goes to nursery at all, but I definitely find this with the nursery that the pennies sort of dropped with Arthur's nursery, that if they just make a vegan option, it covers everyone. And then they don't need to worry. Whereas I always think vegetarian options, no disrespect to any vegetarians listening, but that it's sort of like it's not quite as inclusive as it could be. If it was vegan, it just covers everyone, doesn't it?
That's it.
Yeah.
Because I think obviously predominantly when you have a vegetarian meal, it's quite bland, but they always put dairy on it.
Yeah.
That's how I think obviously they get around it.
Yeah, do you know what? I had that conversation with somebody who was actually vegetarian, and they were sort of complaining that they said it sounds really odd, but they said that the vegan option was they always preferred going to restaurants with vegan options, and look, what you just said there just resonated with that point, and I just thought, no, that's exactly why.
Just throw a bit of cheese on it, it'll taste all right. Whereas I think vegan food has to be really heavily flavoured to give it that little bit of a difference. And that was one thing, I don't know about you, but when I cut out meat, that was one thing I struggled with. Everything just tasted so plain. I was like, it just tastes so boring, but there's so much like flavour in obviously meat and things like that. So not that it was hard, it wasn't hard for me to give it up because you make that connection with the animals, but I just found the taste was just really just different to get used to. Whereas now I couldn't think of anything worse.
No, I agree. I think you work harder, don't you? When you become vegan, it's like you work harder to make the flavors kind of really pop, if you like.
You can be quite lazy, I think, if you're not vegan, you can just, I don't know, I remember just like putting meat in stuff and then that'd be it. That's it, that's done. So I think you have to be very, very good at cooking.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. And actually, if there's one benefit from this lockdown, I think it's forcing me to even get beyond the sort of the 10 meals on rotation probably that we normally have. So yeah, you definitely do need to work on your culinary skills. I'm intrigued as to, so you've opened, well, not opened, but converted almost the salon to cruelty free, and then taken on the title of vegan.
Yeah.
Did you have existing customers who almost was skeptic? I know it sounds odd because it's like, well, why would you be? But was there any of your existing customers almost skeptical as to what the change was? Did you get any people kind of asking you, so what exactly have you done that's different? Why have you done it?
Well, I was really, really anxious, to be honest with you, to make it vegan, but I just thought I just need to be true to myself and just continue, well, just do it vegan. And I was just really worried what people would think if I cut out dairy. And I thought, no, why am I buying dairy for the shop when I don't have it myself? Like, why would I get dairy in the shop when I don't believe in that? And I've seen everything that goes on in these dairy farms and I feel so strongly about it. Why would I then just completely go back on everything that I've thought about and just buy it in the shop for other people? And that was one of the things I really, really was really nervous about because I kept thinking, like, some people are just really set in their ways, aren't they? And think, I want milk in my tea. I don't deviate from that. That's it. I'm not having that. Oh, I'm not having that. It's vegan. Oh, it tastes rubbish. I just think some people just have that mindset before even sort of going out and, trying it. They're like, oh no, oh, I won't have one then. And I thought, if people think that, then whatever. Like, I can't make everybody, like stuff like that. But yeah, I was very anxious about that part. So that was one of the main things that I changed. And I think sometimes people think, oh, vegan, and they get the back up a little bit as well. But everyone's been absolutely fine. But I would say the majority of my clients are actually meat eaters, because I've been hairdressing from 19 in this area. I'm 31 this year. So I've had all my clients all that time. So yeah, I was really worried that they'd be like, oh, what are you doing? I just want a tea with milk in. And then I thought, when I think about it more and more, I thought, it's only milk. Like, they'll just get over it.
It's funny that, isn't it? You sort of
Yeah.
we've like I don't know about you, but sometimes we've actually had that debate in the house. Sometimes when we've got maybe a relative coming over, who we know will, make a thing of it if there isn't actual milk in the house, and so we've had that debate before. Like, do we buy milk? And then we're like, well, we fundamentally don't agree with buying milk, so it feels wrong to do so. Like, it's a whole nother scale for you when you're thinking about my day-to-day business. Like, you'd have to have a milk order every week, and would you want to do that? And then you've got to, you've got to make the tea and the coffee and so on. And as whilst it may seem small, it's like, well, that's sort of a daily act that goes against the choice you've made.
I just felt like a big hypocrite, but exactly the same as you. Like, I've had people that come round as well and won't deviate away from having milk. So, and you're always a little bit like, oh, it just annoys you, but they're people's choices, aren't they? I can't dictate what everyone sort of thinks. Like, it's just, especially like when you hear about what's in milk and pus and things like that, it's just repulsive. So, and when you think about it, like, why would you have another animal's milk? Why have we ever thought about doing that? It's like the weirdest thing in the world. Like, why did I used to like love putting it all over my cereals and getting a chocolate bar? It's just mental to think about it now.
I often think if you were drinking it straight from source, you'd be arrested. Like, it
Yeah.
would be the oddest. Do you know what I mean? If you saw somebody in a field, you'd think, "What the hell? I'm calling the police or something." It's
Yeah,
just,
you would.
what is that person doing? But for some reason, like, as soon as you create some distance and you disconnect it, and then it's in a fridge in a shop, it's like, oh, it's fine, perfectly natural. But like, I suppose we all went through years of saying that that's perfectly normal, and the advertising worked, didn't it? From the point of view of, it's healthy, good for your bones, good for your teeth, all that, we need it, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, like when you look at commercials, I watched a commercial, like an old, I think it was in the 1950s, and it was like, if you're breastfeeding, get your child off your breast immediately and put them on cow's milk, because there's nothing better than cow's milk. But it obviously didn't, people at the time didn't think, no, well, so this is my milk. This is meant for the baby. Like, what would make you think that cow's milk would be better than your milk? That's got all of your antibodies and things like that, and it's crazy.
just the strangest thing, the power of marketing.
It is. It is so crazy.
So when you've now got the, like, going back to the chronology, we've got the salon, and we've changed the milk and all the products, and you've kind of taken that really bold step of saying, actually, I'm now, this is a vegan salon. Did you actually find, we talked about some people who might have felt uncomfortable, but thankfully, I suppose you built up such a reputation as such a great hairdresser that people aren't kind of necessarily in that mindset. But did you find it go the other way, that you found lots of people actually who were looking for a vegan salon, and were challenged with the minefield that we talked about before of, like, is this product, is that hair product, is this, is that? They suddenly started to sort of turn up at your door? Was that a thing that sort of happened for you?
Yeah, like I met like the most incredible people. Like as soon as I said it was vegan, like just the nicest people in the world. Like this lady, I'm in Manchester, in Urmston. That's where the salon is. And this lady had come from Denton, and she was on the phone to me, and she just said, "Can I just say thank you so much for providing this service? And I think it's a really bold move, and thank you so much. I really do appreciate it." And I was like nearly in tears. I was like, how nice is this woman that I've not even met before, like saying things like this? And I've got like a really, really nice following now. I've got a lady that comes from Warrington, and people that travel. And I think people are willing to travel if they've found someone that provides the service that they want, and also have taken that sort of thinking process out of it. And they know they can come in, they know that whatever I'm going to offer them, any little snacks, or if I do any cocktails or anything, like if it's been the salon's birthday, there's literally no thought process in it. It's all been done for them, and it must feel nice to do that, because it just takes that stress out of it. Because for me, there's nothing more stressful than having to think about everything all the time. Like we were talking about before, going to somebody's house and you're like, oh, what is it? Oh, I'll just check and see if it's in that. And yeah, it must just be nice for people to do that. And they've obviously built up a really good relationship with me as well. So I've met really amazing people, and it's been so nice to have like really deep and meaningful chats. And just like me and you are doing now, like finding where people have got to the point, and everybody's different. And I think everybody when you hear about these vegans in the mainstream media, and these crazy people, I've not come across that at all. Anybody I've met, and everybody's just so lovely. Like all my clients are just so down to earth and just really easy to get along with, and it's just been really good having chats and having you've got something in common with somebody straight away, so it's quite easy to chat to people at that point. Like coming on here and speaking to you today, I'd felt more comfortable knowing that we'd already got something that we're both very passionate about, so that kind of chilled me out a little bit.
Yeah, definitely, especially when it's something so fundamental to your sort of core values. I definitely relate to that. And part of the reason I started the podcast, I didn't have a particularly huge sort of group, and then went to a vegan festival and was introducing people at it, and then suddenly realised that the world was much bigger than I thought it was, and much more kind of diverse and welcoming and interesting. And I'm kind of jealous actually, because essentially you're the more I think about it, you're essentially getting to have, I don't know, you probably don't know how many hours specifically, but if it's an 8-hour day, probably eight hours worth of podcast interviews with
Yeah.
with potentially different vegans all day long. And I'd be interesting to hear your perspective on, maybe some of the things that you've learned, the different viewpoints, different perspectives through kind of essentially the conversations that you've had cutting people's hair. Has it taught you a lot about veganism and the wider world of it?
I think it's helped massively, because you're speaking to other people, and it's just things like, I'll have clients that'll come in and we'll be chatting, and they'll say, "Do you know they're vegan?" I'm like, "What? They're vegan? Like they're like the nicest little treat ever. I'm going to go out and get them." Or, "You want to try these, Charmaine?" Like, "Oh, Galaxy's doing like a new chocolate. Get that." So it's nice. You feel like you've got 1,000,001 friends, and I found out quite a lot of information through that as well. Just finding what foods I can eat, because that I did find that quite difficult, like treat food especially, and that was one thing that I do like. I like a treat. I like a bit of junk food. So yeah, that's been nice when people have come in. And not having debates as such with people, but like what we sort of find acceptable. And I've been like to people, I've still got leather and stuff like that in my house, and they're like from my clothes, and I was like, "What are your views on that?" I was like, "I feel like if I get rid of it now, it kind of defeats the object, because the damage is already done. Like, I just feel like for me, I should just wear them wear them out, and then get the use out of them. And other people have agreed, and then there's other people that's like, no, to be honest, like when I became vegan, I just wanted to throw everything in the bin. But it's just everybody's personal situation, I suppose. It's how you feel about it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that's the more conversation you have, there are definitely some diverse views. The sort of preganism one we talked about a little bit actually on the last episode, just touched upon exactly that concept that you talk about there. Like, it's already, the thing's already happened, that the act that I disagree with, the killing of this animal's already happened. The leather has been made into this jacket or whatever, and I've had this jacket for 5 years, and it may last a lifetime. Who knows, sort of thing. So is it, what's worse, get rid of it or keep it? Like that's a debate that comes up now and then with people I've spoken to, and I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. The more conversations that you're in, I bet it's just a absolute treasure trove of top tips and information and viewpoints, and some you agree with and some you disagree with, and yeah, I bet it's fascinating.
And I suppose as well, like there's another factor, isn't it? If you're thinking about the environment, if I was to get rid of some old leather shoes that I'd got that are perfectly fine, like you say, that could last for years and years, or do I go out and keep buying plastic shoes that potentially couldn't, they might not last as long, There's loads of different factors in that, isn't there? There's loads of different viewpoints.
Yeah, there are. It's certainly not a black and white kind of issue. And yeah, if you feel like super uncomfortable wearing it, I totally respect that, and donate it or pass it on to a friend or family member who's more comfortable, then absolutely fine. Yeah, but yeah, I'm not sure I would feel comfortable with getting rid of the whole wardrobe, and like you say, buying a whole new set of sort of vegan, in inverted commas, clothes and so on. In fact, I had a conversation with somebody a while ago, who's a sort of style blogger from the States, called Jeanette, who talked about that at length, actually, about the damage that sort of fast fashion causes, and how, like you say, that one pair of shoes that could have lasted years versus 10 pairs of shoes that were manufactured in a way that was really environmentally damaging. It's like, yeah, what's the biggest problem there? It's it's definitely worth debate and discussion. I almost want to, well, if I had any hair, I'd just come and have my hair cut to have these debates and discussions. But I've gone for the lockdown cut, unfortunately.
I'll tell you another one that comes up in the salon. Zoos. I went to a zoo in Budapest. This was, I think I was actually a meteor at this point. And I remember thinking the animals look so sad. And I said to Chris that I was never, ever going to go to a zoo again after that. But I know some vegans that do go to a zoo and some that just won't. And there's like pros and cons to both, isn't there? I've got, clients that are really strongly against like going to zoos. And her son actually was supposed to go on a trip to the zoo. And she wrote a letter to them saying, I will ensure that he stays at home and I will be teaching him all about the animals and I'll make him write you an essay on it, but he's not going to see caged animals in a zoo. And, she was like so strongly against it. But then I've got a friend who's vegetarian who works in a zoo and, she doesn't see anything wrong with it because, they've been brought up there. But yeah, there's loads of different, discussions for either one, and it's difficult.
You should record it, Charmaine. I think it would be a better podcast than mine. Just set up a couple of mics in the salon. I think it'd be awesome. Do you ever find, like, because it is such an emotive subject, like whether it's a non-vegan customer or even a vegan customer, and lots of people wanting to kind of like I don't know, it just comes up in discussion or debate. Do you ever find there's any kind of friction or a kind of an approach that you need to take, or perhaps you sometimes need to hold your tongue almost? like how does that work in that kind of environment? or is it generally pretty amicable discussion?
No, I do think I have to hold my tongue a little bit in certain situations. Like I've got a client who I absolutely adore. She's not like afraid to like tell me what she thinks and vice versa, but nothing like horrible between the two of us. And she was like, if you don't mind me asking, how come you don't have dairy? Because they like it, don't they? They like being milked. They like it. They stand there and they like it. I've watched it being done and blah blah blah. And I was like, well, actually, they don't. It was like the whole reason, and I went through it with her, and she was like, oh really? I didn't realise that was the case. But I think it's just trying to do it in a really nice way that's not judging people or getting the back up, because I think, putting myself in their situation, if someone was to sort of attack me and say, well, do you know that this is what happens to cows and da da da, and you're having that, and it just gets you back up straight away, and you're like, she's a weirdo, I'm going to just have dairy because I want to have dairy. If you just say it really calmly and matter of fact and you're not getting anyone, that's a factual thing, I think, it's fine. But I have got some clients that think, like, I've got a client that just thinks I'm nuts. And, he'll just ask me loads of different questions. He's like, so is your car leather? He's like, it's a load of rubbish, this veganism. But he loves his dog. Yeah, he loves his dog so much. He loves me, and his wife loves me as well. That's why they come back to me. But, yeah, he thinks I'm nuts. I know he thinks I'm nuts. And he'll try and wind me up and say things like, we had a lovely lamb, we had a lovely lamb last night. You've just got to sort of take it on the chin and just ignore them. Like, that's your viewpoint, that's my viewpoint. I'm not going to change you, and you're not going to change me. It doesn't offend me in the slightest. I think the more you sort of have a go at people or say things, the more that they're going to do it to annoy you. So I just laugh at things like that because I think, whatever, not bothered.
It's an incredible feat of patience in a way. Like, I'm just thinking, like, that there's, as we all know, like we've talked about at the beginning there about, routes into veganism. Everyone's got a different route in, and for some people they've been shocked into it. They might have watched a horrific video or seen something horrific. Then other people, it's they might have. I've spoken to people who've walked past, I don't know, some kind of like activist group in the street, and they might not have thought about it immediately, but then, a month later, something resonated with them. Through to people who sort of, it's more gentle and they ate a nice meal and so on and so forth. I'm interested as to your overarching kind of like view or philosophy on, I guess, like how you've found kind of the way people receive messages and what you found to be the most effective. Because I imagine in your position, you've probably had the opportunity to almost try every type of message in a way in the conversations you've had, both forcefully putting something across or more gently. What have you found to be most effective from your sort of personal point of view?
Well, I think, first of all, I just start, I'll bring up the subject. Like, this is always a really good one. It makes me sound really manipulative, this, doesn't it? So I'll just first of all say, I'm like, oh, have you got any pets? And, this won't all be in the same conversation. It could be like in little bits of the conversation, when I'm doing the hair or colour or whatever. And they'll say things like, oh yeah, I've got a little cat. And I'll go, oh, like, what's it called? Da, da, da. And then they'll ask about the shop being cruelty-free. And I'll just say, yeah, the shop's cruelty-free. And, like, they test on cats as well, and they're horrified. Like, they're absolutely horrified that they were tested on a cat because it's so personal to them, and they couldn't imagine their cat being tested on. So then, like, people have come in and basically said to me, oh yeah, you know what, I was like looking for loads of cleaning products yesterday that were cruelty free, and I'm like, it's so easy and so cheap, isn't it, to do it? And I'll say, like, I'm doing a newsletter at the moment for people, and I put quite a lot of vegan recipes in it, and I'm just hoping that people, like, have that for a meal in the evening, or they try something different. I'll try and talk to people about what I eat as well, because I think people are naturally curious. I've had people that have cut out dairy because they've tried the oat milk that I had in, because I have for the coffee I have that oat milk barista. So I've had a few people saying, "Oh, I love that oat milk barista. I'll only have that now." And I think those small little changes that people do obviously are going to make a massive impact. And I think there's just ways and means of going around it. And I think that's how I deal with it. So like the cruelty-free thing, that's what I would always say. Like, have you got an animal? Yeah, the test on those animals. And then people are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that." Or, yeah. And then I've just said, like, for me, like when I went vegan, I couldn't even think about eating my dog. It sounds stupid, doesn't it? But like, I couldn't even think about eating my dog, and like, what's so different between, a cow, a chicken, or and that's the way I sort of think about it. And I do occasionally tell people the cow story, and I get a bit of a funny look sometimes, but other people just think it's really nice. And
The cow
yeah,
story makes perfect sense to me.
yeah,
There's
it would
nothing,
do though, because we're on the same level as each other. So
there's nothing weird about that at all. I've got one final sort of big question for you, Charmaine, which is like, how confident are you that we're sort of moving in the direction towards kind of getting to I guess a world that's vegan, or at least predominantly vegan, accepting that lots of different parts of the world are in very different places, and particularly, I suppose, the little caveat to that question as well. Do you think the kind of current situation with lockdown, etc., is sort of a catalyst towards that? Do you see there being any sort of green shoots of it helping people to connect with veganism at all?
I think it could help. I don't know whether it will, because I think some people are just so hell bent on not changing. There's certain people I know that just will not watch things on Earthlings, or they don't want to know because ignorance is bliss. But I do think the easier and easier it is for people to try alternatives, and when they do try them, think actually that's no different from eating, you know, chicken or whatever I normally eat. I think that's going to be a change. And I've noticed so many people like having corn mince now rather than, beef, because they're like, I'm on Weight Watchers, trying to lose weight. And, I get corn in this now. And, I'm like trying different alternatives because it's less calories. And it's like Greg's, it's obviously not ideal for weight and things like that. But how amazing is it that we've got places like that popping up and making it so accessible? And I know loads of people that have tried the vegan sausage rolls and that are not vegan. So I think the easier and easier it gets for people, I think that's when it's going to be changing. And I think it's massively changing now. And I think, just like you being around different people and, people trying your food, or when people come and see me, like my friend came round that eats meat, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I'll try what you're eating." And she went, "Actually, that's actually really nice." And another friend of mine, she went, "Oh, I'll get that instead of ham." I think it's just giving people the option that they can eat other things that aren't animal, and people making those connections. But I think there's more of a want for it now. So I think going forward, that would sort of change.
Awesome. Well, I hope you're right, and
Yeah,
let's keep fighting the good fight from our various corners.
yeah.
On that note, actually, so if somebody wants to go about connecting with you, maybe even hopefully visiting the salon, where would they go about finding you?
So if you go on Instagram and go on Love Hair by Charmaine, I've actually added you as a friend, so you'll be able to see me on it as well. If you just go in my bio, and there is a link to book there. So it just literally goes through to my online diary, or you can just send me an email and say you want to book in, and I can have a consultation with you. But yeah, that easy. Or on my website as well, you can click to book in. So that's www.lovehairbysharmaine.com.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for your time, Charmaine, and enjoy Little Wilf. during this this period. That's one of the, I suppose, the best things about this, isn't it? We get to spend a bit of time with the little ones. So
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you so much.
No worries, thank you.